Welcome to Mommispace, the podcast for moms of all stages. My name is Kay Jenin, and this podcast was created to give moms a voice to share their experiences and to share that there is not just one way to be a mom. This is a place where you can learn to love the woman inside the mother. Okay, thank you so much for tuning back in. We are talking about babies versus daddies. It's a series that we're wrapping up, and it's all about what it's like to go from being a wife or a partner to being a mom and a partner. It's a lot on a marriage to add in a baby, and we're talking about it. If you haven't already listened to the first 3 episodes of this series, I'd recommend you do that. But we're rounding it out with 2 last episodes where I talk to my husband, Chris, and we talk about some of the things that we've overcome and learned, and we're continuing to learn, I guess, in this new season of having a baby and being in a marriage. You'll notice this part 1 episode, we're going to talk about, hey mamas, thanks for listening again this week. This is going to be my favorite thing of the week again, and I decided to share with you how much I love the Halo sleep sack. My son is 6 months old, and we are still using the Halo sleep sack, and I think we'll stop using when he's finally too tall. What's awesome is the hospital that I gave birth in actually gifts one to every mom. What I love about it, I've tried a lot of different sleep sacks and swaddlers and things like that. My son is really long, and he is very good at getting his arms out. And I know if you are a mom and you've tried to swaddle your baby, you've seen their arms rip out of that thing. We've tried different brands, cheaper ones, off-brand ones, and I finally just was all in, and I'm like, I'm just getting the Halo because it works the best. I really like the fleece one because we keep it cold in our house even in the summer, and then we live in Wisconsin, so it's cold in the winter, and I just wanted to make sure he was nice and cozy at night, and I didn't want to have to add another blanket. And we have 2 of the newborn, 2 of the small, and we just keep them around all the time. If one's dirty, then we have that backup one to use. But the reason I love it so much is it's nice and warm. It's long. It keeps their legs contained, but he can still move his legs. He doesn't feel scrunched. And then those big panels that cover over him and Velcro shut are just very sturdy. I feel like I've washed them a million times and they don't seem like they're going anywhere, where the other ones really would get like tangled and just not be as easy to use anymore. And a lot of them, honestly, his legs outgrew them so fast. So the Halo sleep sack is just a win in our book. I'm not one to spend a lot of money on a baby product unless it totally works. And I've sold out to the Halo sleep sack. Now that he's starting to roll over, we can put just one arm in. You can transition swaddle with just one arm in, one arm out. And then you can even just swaddle their torso and leaving their arms out. And that's probably what we'll do moving forward. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the Halo sleep sack because we sincerely love using that on our baby, and it's so sturdy that I know it's going to work for all the kids we have. And I say, don't waste money like I did. Don't get all the cheap ones and the ones from Walmart and Amazon and try all these different ones. Just get the Halo. You'll save a ton of money doing that, and it totally works. Now that you know my favorite thing, this is our episode. All right, thanks so much for listening to Mommispace again. This is episode 2 of me talking with my husband. We're in a series called Babies versus Daddies, and the inspiration behind it, I guess, is I'm a new mom. Our son is 6 months old, and it's interesting to see how your marriage changes when you introduce a baby into the mix. So I started off talking about my perspective, and then I talked with some fun moms, and I thought I'd close it out talking with Chris. Our part 1 of this, we kind of talked about some of those first couple weeks home and some of the, I guess, fun, interesting things that happened. And this time we're going to be talking about things that we want to work on in our marriage moving forward. and the steps we're taking to do those things. And I thought it would be fun to share it with you guys and maybe give you just an example and a picture of what it can look like to actually talk about those things. And so we're going to talk about things that make us uncomfortable, right, Chrissy?
We sure are.
It's going to be super exciting. Okay, so first things first, what is something moving forward that you want us to work on in our relationship?
I think the biggest thing, and this is probably true for, every marriage can improve in communication.
Yeah, correct.
I think just knowing how to respond to negative feedback, but also understanding how to respond to positive feedback in a way that's just, good for both people. And I think we need that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, we know it's plain as day that when either of us are offended or upset or annoyed with each other or just feel misunderstood, we've gotten better, but we still don't really know how to communicate that with one another and keep our chill while communicating, like that we're hurt or offended or feel insecure or we're afraid or any kind of emotion we're experiencing. If it's negative, we tend to not respond in a very healthy way. Yeah. Both of us. We both have our screwed up ways of doing it. I'm more anxious. Okay, I don't think I've told you about this, but there's a thing in psychology called attachment styles. And I was learning about this on TikTok, actually. There's like a psychology major talking about it, but each person has an attachment style. So it's how they attach to people.
Okay.
There's secure, so like a healthy person. And then there's others, but they mainly go into two categories, either anxious or avoidant. And so an anxious attachment person would look like when they feel like they're being rejected or the person's pulling away from them or they're scared of losing them, they chase and they talk more and they try to get that person to love them, where an avoidant shuts down and kind of starts running away, either emotionally or literally. What kind would you say you are?
I don't know.
How do you not know?
I guess, well...
I thought it was super obvious that I'm an anxious attachment and you're an avoidant attachment. Because when we get into the thick of things, your knee-jerk reaction is usually to just, shut down, right?
Yeah.
And my knee-jerk is to just, fight harder, talk more, push harder.
Yeah, they don't mix very well.
No, and so it was interesting. They were talking about how those two styles are attracted to one another, but obviously they're going to have the most amount of issues because the way they deal with hardship is completely opposite. And nothing scares an anxious attachment style more than somebody leaving them or shutting down because it's scary and feels like they're going away from them and not loving them anymore, which is what an avoidant style does. And nothing scares an avoidant style more than being pressured and chased after because they just feel overwhelmed. So they literally do the exact thing that the other person's scared of.
That's funny.
So, yeah, and it's great that we're that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping that we kind of learn how to work through those personal differences in the way that we attach and learn healthier ways to communicate and healthier ways to deal with our fears. So that's one thing. Then we also talked about, we actually wrote notes. We met ahead of time to talk about what are the things we want to work on in our marriage, which I think is good for everyone to do, is to sit down and take inventory and say, these are the things I could use being better. And these are the things I want to fix in myself. And then he talked about the things he wants to fix in himself. And it helps put everything in perspective and give you a goal, right? And just really being okay, we're clear on what we're unhappy about and what we're happy about.
Yeah.
Because it would suck if I didn't know the places that you were not fulfilled and you didn't know the places I wasn't fulfilled. So the next one we put is sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, super fun. We're not going to go super in detail about that because that's not everybody's business. But just, I think, we've been married 2 years and sex can get boring and it can get tricky and there's never a time where we couldn't use, I guess, more fun. So that's kind of our goal, is having more fun and learning more about ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
And then the last one we wrote down for us is just knowing each other better. I don't feel like I know Chris super well, because he's more of a reserved person, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You just keep saying yeah to everything.
Well, yeah, I don't let a lot of people in, I guess. Like, surface level, I can get to know anybody. Mm-hmm. But, like, to go deeper, like, I don't know. I feel like you have to earn it.
Thank you.
You've earned it.
Thank you. I think I earned it. But also, you don't go very deep in general, right? Like, you don't overanalyze stuff like I do. You kind of take things at face value.
Yeah.
And so, even if you're, like, worried or nervous, you don't easily identify that you're worried or nervous.
Yeah, true.
So, that's something, like, we want to grow in, is just him being able to go deeper and communicate with me and take me with him to get to know him better. And then for me, I think I'm a really open book, but because I talk so much, I don't think you really hear the parts that are serious and I want you to take serious. So, also, you don't feel like you know me super well either. Like, beyond the surface. So I think we both want to go deeper with each other and figure out really who is that person at the core of it. Mm-hmm. Because there are people in my life who know me better than my husband, and I don't really want that. Do you feel like there's people who know you better than I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, like, isn't it the beauty of having a spouse is at the end of our life, we'll be like, that person got me, mm-hmm. you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of one of my biggest desires, I think, for marriage is having somebody who truly understands.
Yeah.
Likewise.
I think that's a good thing to aim for, yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of our goals individually. Chris, talk about your goals personally that you want to work on that influence.
I'd say my biggest flaw is my anger problems.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. Sometimes it's not really a big deal to me, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I really need to figure something out about this.
Yeah. You've been
means,
chill for a while. Like, I mean, honestly, as marriage has gone, you've gotten better, but...
Yeah, I've gotten a lot better. But I still feel like I haven't, like, arrived to the place that I should be at.
Yeah, you haven't, like, mastered it.
I don't know. Maybe everybody's, like, closet angered people, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But, I don't know. I think, I'm polite to people. And, like, people at work would never know that.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty much only me.
Well, I think it's, like, where I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Like, my anxiety only comes out at home with you. And it wasn't this bad until I got married, which I don't know what that says about you.
Same with my anger.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that it was, like, not this bad until you married me.
I remember, I think it was before we got married, my dad said that when you get married, like, the good things about you and the bad things about you get, like, amplified.
Yeah. And he said, don't, like, freak out. Just take it for what it is.
Yeah. So, like, anger for me, probably, like, the worst of me has amplified.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's never, like, overwhelming for me. Now I'm, like, even more incentivized to be healthier people because we have kids. Like, a kid, and we're planning on having more.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't want Gideon to ever see you be in a fit of rage. And I never want him to see me have an anxiety attack.
Right.
Like, that just is... That's traumatizing.
Yes. That'd be terrible.
Yeah. And it's super embarrassing when I have them, but I know you're an adult and you can handle it.
But he has... already.
Yeah, but he has, like, as a baby, and I just don't want him to be old enough to be, like, cognizant and have it as a memory, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we've probably caused trauma to him already, and I'd like to, like, work past that. Anyway, so I'll share one of mine. Mine's anxiety. And I had anxiety attacks when I was in high school. Like, I would wake up feeling scared to go to school. But it didn't affect, like, how... the rest of my day worked. Sometimes I would get really stressed and overwhelmed with stupid things. Like, if I had to do a chore and I had homework, it would overwhelm me. So I probably had, like, hints of anxiety throughout high school and just in daily life, but not anything that wasn't manageable. And then when I got married, a lot of, like, childhood trauma and really probably, like, learned behavior doesn't work as well. You can't just go hide in your room and freak out and calm down. but you're like next to the person and it's like triggering. And you would do and say things that you didn't realize were super hurtful to me and really made me feel insecure, or just like all those past fears of things would come up, and I lose my crap sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm better at identifying when it's coming, and we've really grown. And now if I communicate to you, like, I think I'm going to have a panic attack or anxiety attack or whatever you want to call it, it's probably one or the other, but I don't know. Then if I communicate that with you, you help me like calm down. Yeah. And that's, at this point, the only way I can calm down is if you help me.
Yep.
But you're also the source of it. So like, it's weird.
But it's so hard for me when I'm having my angry moments to like, because then I have to calm down and then help you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I have to do that within like
moments,
preferably within seconds.
Yeah. And so it's not fair to you, and it sucks for me. Like, it's just not a good situation. So both of us, those are kind of our big character flaws that we'd like to work through. And if we could really get a handle on them, that would give us a lot of health and freedom in our relationship, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, what's something else?
Patience. I would like to have more tools to learn how to be more patient. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think like anger is usually like a byproduct of something else, usually. And I think lack of patience is something that like triggers my anger.
Yeah.
So just being able to, having tools and resources and just things to like avoid my anger, which I think you kind of talked about that a little bit, but
and then I also wrote down knowing how to handle when Chris is upset. Like, what do I do to be a helper to him and not make it worse? And then how do I express myself to be heard? Because I think a lot of times I will express myself, but it doesn't seem to register on your end, and I want to find a way to be able to speak your language better. And I think, too, one thing we noticed when we did, like, pre-marriage counseling is having a third person translate for us was really helpful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Like, when Veda would translate what the other person was trying to say, and then you're like, oh, okay. Because it's hard to hear from each other when you're mad.
Yeah.
Or you just feel defensive about it. But then if, like, somebody else tells you, it's so helpful. It just brings so much clarity. And then you wrote down understanding me more, right? And, like, getting, like, redeveloping that passion, that desire to hear me. Instead of just being like, blah, 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 here we go again.
Yeah, I think after a while, you get sick of, like...
fighting and pickiness and...
Yeah, and just, like, the excitement of getting to know somebody goes away.
Yeah.
But, and that happens with friends, too. But, like, just having that excitement of, like, discovering things about each other.
Yeah.
Like, when you first start dating somebody or talking to somebody, that's, like, a really exciting time in a relationship. And, I guess when that's gone, sometimes it feels like the rug is getting swept from underneath you. And you just don't... I don't know. I feel like it's just, like, it's something that doesn't have to go away, but it does for a lot of people. So just...
reigniting like the desire to
ways to keep that excitement going. And
that's good. And then I suggested this and you agreed, is I think for you, like, you don't know how to identify what you're feeling beyond anger a lot of times. Like, you're like, I'm angry, but in reality you're probably like scared or nervous or insecure or one of those things. Not really angry, but that's just the way it displays itself. So learning how to identify like how you feel and communicate that. I think even recently I was like, can you handle talking still? And you're like, I don't know. And I was like, no, can you handle talking or should we take a break? And you're like, I do need a break. So getting to a place where you don't need me to check and make sure you're okay, but you can actually self-identify, like, I'm not okay right now and I need a second.
Yeah.
Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Then I want to talk about the steps that we are planning to take. We literally just wrote these down. Some of them have been in the works, and some of them we just came up with.
Yeah, we didn't. They're not all just spontaneous.
Yeah. So I'll do it backwards. So we struggle really bad with keeping up with our devotional life every single day. It seems like it goes in waves, and we'll be like, okay, we really need to do this, and we'll muscle through, and we just can't keep it up. And so we decided on a time. So we picked like 9:30 p.m. We're going to go, like at 9, we're going to go get ready for bed. We're going to pack our lunch for the next day. We're going to pick out our outfits. I'm going to wash my face, and then we'll get in bed, and at 9:30 we'll do our devos. And we picked out books that we want to use at first. Mm-hmm. We might transition to just reading through the Bible together or things like that, but I think books will help us transition and be successful, and that's the plan. Because I think the biggest thing is when we hear from the Lord and he can transform our heart with his word, mm-hmm. that's where success is going to come from. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. So I that's like kind of one of our biggest things. And then I'll tell you some of the books that we're using. I'll just link them in the show notes, the Devo books we're going to use for that. And one of them is like a prayer book, and it's 31 Days of Prayer for Your Husband, I think. And I plan on using that one consistently as well. Yep. Then, this was your idea.
What does it say? Oh, date. Yeah, I want to go on a date with you.
Thanks.
But we can't because...
Did you just ask me out on a date during a podcast? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Pretty smooth, huh?
That was really cute.
Hardly even noticed I did it.
Nope. Didn't even notice.
I think going on a date I think they're really important for couples to do. Mm-hmm. We obviously haven't gone out in a long time because nobody has.
Quarantine.
But I think there's something good about just getting out of your house, dressing up, going out, seeing people you don't know. I don't know, just being in a different environment, away from the baby, away from the dumb dog.
Yeah, our dog's dumb.
He is dumb. I love him, but he is dumb.
He's dumb.
I just think, setting yourself apart from your everyday life, it's escapism.
Yeah. Yeah.
With your special person. So I think...
Well, and then it also means, like, I'm not a mom right now. I'm a wife. And it kind of lets me focus on that. And taking that time to get to know each other or communicate about things that you normally can't communicate about or whatever. Honestly, dates for me since being married kind of are boring because it feels like the female version of porn is like chick flicks, in my opinion, or like romantic novels, things like that. And you get it in your head that it should always have this, like, fairy tale fluffy thing. When you go on a date and it's not feeling like that, it almost is more of a bummer than if we would have just stayed home and watched Netflix, Yeah. So that's something, too, that... And for me, a date, like, if we're on a date and there's stuff in our relationship that we're not happy with or stuff I'm not content with, it just comes to the surface for me. Where if we just stay home and we watch Netflix and hang out with our baby, then I can kind of ignore it, which isn't healthy.
What is an ideal date for you?
I like the idea of just, like, going out to eat and hanging out at a restaurant together, and going to a show or going to a movie. Like, I like normal dates, but I just want to be, like, I want lots of affection showered on me, no matter what it is. I feel like I'm really needy for attention, like, compared to normal people. And I think of our second date where we were, like, on each other the whole date and touching constantly, mm-hmm. and you were showing me lots of affection, and that's, like, what makes me giddy, where if I don't get that, I'm not really, like, I'm just sad, mm-hmm. Like, it ends up being a sad experience. Yeah. So, I don't know, I really want to go to the melting pot. I just thought of that, because that, eating at the melting pot is like an event.
It's a good date place, yeah.
Because it takes like 2 hours to eat your meal. Yeah. And you're doing an activity.
It's a fondue place, if you guys don't know.
Oh, yeah. It's fondue, and they give you courses. And it takes a long time to go through your dinner because you are, like, eating bite by bite and, like, dipping. And then even with the meat, you're, like, boiling it. So, like, it's a long process. You're always doing something, so it's nice. Yeah.
It's fun.
really good for talking. You sit in a booth so you can cuddle, like...
Oh, and isn't there's small booths, but then there's a curtain, right? So, like...
Oh, I think there is a curtain.
So, like, you can hide yourself
Is that true? I feel like maybe you made that up.
I know. No, I think I remember that. But I've only been there once.
How do they, like... Do they just open it and you're, like, making out? And you're like, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. They're like, let me see your hands.
But yeah, so I guess I want to do a date too. But dates aren't fun for me unless this sounds like a bratty thing to say, but unless I feel, like, showered in affection. Right? Like, otherwise I'm just sad. Then I just feel like those boring old people. When I was a waitress in high school, I always felt really sad serving the tables where the husband and wife didn't talk. Like, they just ate their meal and didn't speak to each other. And then when we go on dates, sometimes I feel like that.
But was there like an equal amount of uncomfortability with the couples that wouldn't get off of each other?
No. Like, I would judge them. I'd be like, that's a lot of PDA. And we're really PDA-y. I don't think that's the way you say it, but not as much anymore. But I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, you're, like, old and unhappy and married. And then I just feel like, oh, we're turning into those old people.
Yeah. I think a good rule, I mean, I wasn't really planning on talking about dates too long. I think a good rule for dates is just to not have your phone. Like, have your phone for, like, if your babysitter needs to call you, but, like, don't look at social media while you're at dinner.
Yeah.
Like,
and just...
what... Like, you can do that when you get home.
I really like, for us, when we have prepared questions to ask each other, that's always fun. That always makes our dates more fun, because then you have stuff to learn about each other, and you can talk about it. Because I don't really want to talk about our work when we're out on a date. I don't want to talk about drama when we're on a date. Like, I don't want to talk about the thing you said that made me mad on a date. Like, I want to get to know you and have fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Before our next date, we're going to have to, like, set expectations. Because maybe that would make it healthier, is if we both had, like, this is what I'm expecting out of this date. And then I don't have to just hope it'll happen, and you don't have to just hope it'll happen.
Or put in work for the date before the date. Could probably make the date really nice.
Yeah. Wow, I think we figured out dates.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that helps somebody, because I always felt like, especially in the Christian world, they're like, you should date your spouse. You're like, cool, but dates make me sad. Like, but actually having a way of, like, this is a good way to do a date. Just talk about your expectations. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay,
good plan.
Let's move on.
We'll make out in the car before we go to dinner.
Good idea. So the other thing is, I love the Enneagram. I did an interview with my friend Melissa about the Enneagram that's going to be coming out next week. And I found for myself, the more I learned about me through that, it gave me so many tools to be a better person. And it helped me grow in ways that I couldn't do before I read about it. And I have typed my husband. I believe I'm accurate in the way that I typed him. And what we agreed upon, I asked him, I found a really good YouTube channel that explains types, and he learns best through, like, I was going to say kinesthetic. That's such a, like, teacher way to explain it. Doing things with his hands, or, like, watching videos, because you like...
I'm a visual and hands-on learner.
Yeah.
I don't learn by somebody explaining to me the rules or how to do things, or reading.
Yeah.
That, just forget it.
Yeah, so, like, when I was pregnant and I gave you, like, dad books, you didn't read them. And even if I was like, here, listen to this podcast, you probably wouldn't get through it very well, would you?
No, I don't. No.
No. But I knew, okay, what's going to work for my husband is watching videos, and that's something we can do together. And so there's a good YouTube channel that I'll link to below that talks about the Enneagram and explains it. And I think that'll help him get to know me a little bit better, and it'll help me learn him a little bit better. And learning, why are you doing the things you're doing? Is that part of your personality? Are you being a jerk? Like, what is that? And getting to understand the filter that we're living our life through. And then the last thing is... counseling. Wow, I can't believe we just did that. We decided, even though we don't feel like our marriage is going down the toilet, right? Is that, we don't feel that way?
I agree. You're correct.
Okay, I was like, uh-oh. We thought it would be really good for us to just see a counselor because some of those things we talked about, anxiety and anger and not really being able to identify our own emotions or
tools for patience.
Yeah, or knowing how to communicate with the other person what we're thinking and feeling. We felt somebody else would be able to help us through that way faster than if we just like muscled through it on our own. And we found from past experience, like with pre-marriage counseling, that the third party person could really communicate for us and be like that translator, right? Mm-hmm. And that just was, I remember that being so helpful for me is like, oh, I get him better now. And if there's something that's really hurting Chris or me, and we feel like when we try to bring it to each other, that person doesn't get it, it's so nice to have that like, that sounding board that you can be like, this is how I feel, and they can validate you and tell you where you're being crazy, and they can communicate to your spouse what you really need and start to build those tools so that we don't need a counselor to do it for us all the time. And so I'll link below. We're going through Regain. I have no idea if it's going to be good or not yet, but I didn't want it to be in person because we have a baby, so it'd be great if we could do it during nap time in the other room. And I don't know, in person would just be really inconvenient because he also works a 9 to 5, so I don't want him to have to take off work for it. But you can do like, one live session a week, and it's like $65 a week, but then you get unlimited texting and video messages.
And email, I think.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So if we got in a fight or something, I could like tell the counselor like, hey, this is what's happening. This is how we handled it. Like, do you have any advice moving forward? And they don't get back to you immediately, but then he would be able to we'd be able to keep up with him throughout the week. And then when we get together, then we can kind of go over what has happened and stuff like that. So, we're looking forward to using it. We have no idea if it's going to be good or not, but it's really affordable.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's worth a try, right? I mean, like, worst case scenario is that we're in the same place we are now.
Yeah,
like,
right?
It could just totally turn things around and...
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just make things better. Is what I mean.
Yeah. And they have like 3,000 counselors, so if you don't like yours, you can ask to have a different one, and they'll switch you out. So, and you can choose if you want a male or a female or someone who's older or somebody who's Christian or somebody who does like even gay counseling.
Liberal or conservative.
Yeah, you can pick their political views. And I think that's really cool because we're pastors, like, yeah, we probably want someone who has kind of a Christian influence. I'm not necessarily super tied to that, but I would want someone who at least respects that we have that part of our life.
As far as, like, political views, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care either.
I don't know.
We're such a blend anyway. If you care, we're a blend when it comes to politics. But, yeah, so I think I'm excited to try it. And neither one of us... Are you scared to, like, tell somebody else our garbage?
The thing I'm afraid of is, like I said earlier, not being able to open up. I don't... it's because it's like a choice to open up or not to, but like, I don't know. For some reason, sometimes I just can't do it if I'm not comfortable. Like, I don't know. So I guess my fear is if I can't open up, then it probably won't be beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think before we made the appointment, I had been saying for like a year that I want to get counseling or marriage counseling or personal, whatever. But I wanted to see somebody to kind of work through my own issues and our issues. And my biggest fear was like rejection, not being validated, or not being fixable. Like, oh, I'm so screwed up that like you can't fix it. Or this has happened. This is something I love telling people about because I want it to be addressed. But we've probably met with 5 different couples and not necessarily for formal counseling, but couples in church where the point was for them to kind of mentor us or give us advice. And they had a leadership role in our life. And every one of them, I would tell them, for instance, like that when we fight, Chris shuts down and then I'm like begging him to re-engage and we don't know how to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And that Chris didn't know how to like re-engage and I didn't know how to just be okay with him not. And every single person told me it was my fault. and that it was because, like, oh, I was probably nagging. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know, but it's like, it's probably the opposite. It's probably just my dumbass fault.
You just swore. I'm gonna have to beep it out, but yeah, that was really bothersome, and it just showed. Okay, I'm not the one to like blow the sexist Trump card, but like it was sexism at its finest in the church. Is like, oh, women nag and then they make their husbands mad, and it's not the husband's fault for being angry and mean. It's the wife's fault. How dare she? And that's happened over and over and over again. And you would say, yeah, like, I can be really mean to her and say mean things. And they'd be like, oh, but, like, she shouldn't be expecting anything of you. It was just this attitude of, like, how dare you expect your husband to do anything.
And they didn't say any of that directly, really. But, like...
But has anyone ever addressed the way you responded to those things?
No.
No. They always told me what I did wrong.
I agree with you. It's unfair. For sure.
Yeah. And it's totally because it's the church, and that's the way the church has painted the picture of marriage.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. And it's not fair. And so that's really, I probably caused a lot of, like, fear for me is, like, what if they don't validate my feelings? Or what if this counselor is like, oh, you're just a nag? And I'll be like, thanks. Thanks for ruining my life. So those are maybe a little irrational, and I'm willing to push past them and try again. But that really made me wait like a whole year to actually try, because I'm afraid of getting matched with someone that we don't like and wasting a week of our time. Like those kind of things. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I hope it...
Keep them updated, I guess.
I know, I should. I'll keep you guys updated on if we really like it or not. Because it is so affordable. Like if you do it in person, it's a lot of times like $150 a session or more.
Yeah. So this is $65 a week.
If you pay up for a month ahead of time.
And I think they want to do it for 3 months, right?
Yeah, what I read is you could do it for a month, you could do it for 2 months.
But they recommend 3 months, I think is what it said.
Maybe. I think you may have read a different part than I did, but basically you just stop once you feel like, okay, that did for me what I felt was good. And then if we feel really good in like a month and we feel like, okay, we don't need to keep doing that, let's work on what we have right now, we can stop our subscription, and then in 6 months, if there's something else that we want to work through, we could do it again. And so it's nice that you can go back and forth and choose when you do and don't want to do it. Anyway, I guess that's a huge plug. We're not being sponsored or anything. No.
But if you want to sponsor.
Gosh, so that's just our little thing. That's what we're really excited about moving forward is counseling. Mm-hmm. Right? And just like destigmatizing getting therapy or counseling, like it shouldn't be a big deal.
No, I agree. 100%.
All right.
This was fun.
Totally. Anyway. So this is the end of Babies versus Daddies. Chrissy, thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this series. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I'd encourage you to go back and listen. I think they're worth your time. I really do. And moving forward, we're going to go into some individual interviews with some people I really love, and I think they have something to say. Anyway, you guys have a good rest of your week.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out all of the goodness from today's episode on the show notes and share with a friend if it impacted you in any way. You can also leave a review on iTunes so that other mamas can join the movement of loving the woman inside the mother. Join our online Mommispace community every day by following us on Instagram at Mommispace, so you can interact with me and other mamas, be encouraged, and give your valuable input on how to make this beautiful community even more safe and inspiring for mamas all over the world. All my love to you, mama. You are enough.